The message arrived in the middle of Earth's quiet night. It came as a thin silver beam that slipped through the atmosphere and scattered across communication satellites like a whisper carried by light. Most people slept through the event. They never knew the galaxy was calling for help. But deep under the Pacific Ocean, inside a secret station that only a handful of humans were cleared to know about, alarms lit up like sunrise. Director Mara Ellen was the first to reach the control chamber. She was a calm woman, known for never showing fear, even when the world seemed to fall apart. As the incoming transmission stabilized, her eyes narrowed. The hologram that appeared above the table did not look human. It was tall, with long limbs, soft blue skin, and eyes that glowed like tiny moons. It wore ceremonial robes that shimmered with patterns no human culture had ever used. "Director Ellen of Earth," the figure said in a steady, trembling voice. "I speak for the Galactic Concord. We request assistance. Our worlds cannot hold much longer." Everyone in the room grew still. Earth had only recently been contacted by the Concord, a peaceful alliance of many alien species. They were scientists, healers, builders. They were not warriors. When they asked for help, it meant something in the galaxy had become truly dangerous. Director Ellen folded her hands. "State the threat," the alien swallowed. Even that motion looked too delicate for the weight of its message. "The Vorth Dominion continues its advance. They are taking world after world. We have no armies strong enough to resist. We do not wish to bring war anywhere. But war has come to us. Your world is young, but your species is brave. We ask, please send us your greatest heroes." The hologram flickered, then vanished. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, like the room itself was thinking. Finally, Director Ellen exhaled. "Prepare a response. Earth will send help." But even as she spoke, she knew the decision ahead was not simple. Earth had soldiers, yes. Heroes, yes. But the Concord did not understand what kind of heroes Earth could truly send. They asked for noble champions. They imagined shining armor, brave speeches, pure hearts. Earth had some of those. But Earth also had something else, something hidden far below the image it showed the galaxy. Task Force Hecaton. The cruiser Black Summit left orbit 3 days later. To most people watching from Earth's surface, it looked like a simple, dark ship climbing into the sky. Its hull carried no markings, no flags, no signs of the nations that had built it together. It left silently, brushing past the clouds until it disappeared into space. Inside, the corridors were wide, clean, and brightly lit. But the energy that filled the ship was not peaceful. It was like walking through the air before a storm. The crew spoke in calm voices, but each person's eyes carried the same weight. They knew who was aboard. They knew what it meant. In the deepest level of the ship, behind 4 sealed blast doors, sat the members of Task Force Hecaton. 12 in total. Each one was quiet now. Waiting. Watching. No chains held them, but the guards standing outside the chamber carried stun rifles set to maximum strength. Safety procedures. Necessary ones. The galaxy believed humans were bold, curious, clever. That was mostly true. But humanity also bred people who were sharper than knives, colder than ice, born for conflict in a way that frightened even their own commanders. Some people called them monsters. Some called them last resort weapons. None of them were comfortable names. Commander Jax Renner sat alone, leaning against the metal wall. His dark hair fell over one eye, and his posture looked almost lazy. But the guards knew better. He never wasted energy. He saved it for moments when everything exploded at once. In the dim light, he opened the small metal box he always carried. Inside was a silver pin, an old military badge from a unit that no longer existed. He ran a thumb over it, not fondly, but like someone reminding himself of something he did not want to forget. Across the room, Dr. Mira Kess stood by a table, adjusting the wrist device she used for field medicine. She looked harmless at a distance, slight, calm, gentle-faced, but people who had served with her knew she could walk through a burning battlefield with steady hands and no hesitation. She saved lives. She also ended threats. Her logic was simple. whatever it took to complete the mission. Beside her, a tall man named Thorn paced with tight, restless steps. Thorn had been a legend even before Hecaton. He moved like a caged animal, always listening, always alert. His strength was not just in his muscles but in the way his mind saw patterns, the kinds of patterns that made enemies nervous. Others sat quietly, each in their own thoughts. They were not friends. They did not share stories or jokes. They had been selected from different corners of Earth's forces, brought together only because no single government wanted to carry the responsibility alone. Their skills were too sharp, their instincts too dangerous, their past missions too difficult to put on record. So they became part of something hidden, something meant only for moments when the world needed the impossible. This mission had no confirmation yet. They only knew they had been awakened, briefed on the Concorde's call, and loaded onto a ship heading far beyond Earth's influence. Commander Renner looked up when the speakers crackled. "Task Force Hecaton," the captain's voice said, calm but a little too formal. "We are approaching the Concorde capital. Arrival in 20 minutes. Thorn stopped pacing. Mira closed her device. The others straightened. Renner stood and placed the silver pin back in its box. He shut it quietly. "Time to work," he said. His voice was soft, but everyone heard it. The moment the cruiser entered the Concorde star system, hundreds of sensors scanned it. The Concorde fleet had gathered near their capital world sleek ships, with curved hulls and glowing sails. They looked nothing like Earth's angular, armored vessels. Where human ships were built to endure war, theirs were built to avoid it. As the Black Summit slowed, a message came through. "Earth vessel, welcome. We greet you in peace and gratitude. Please prepare for transport to the council chamber." Inside the ship, the guards escorted Hecaton to the main lift. They were not taking chances. Not with this team. The doors opened to a bright landing platform floating above a forest of shimmering blue trees. The air was warm and filled with drifting silver pollen that glowed softly. The Concorde had chosen a beautiful world to lead their alliance. Waiting at the platform were 6 Concorde officials, tall, graceful, nervous. Director Ellen had warned them what to expect. She told them Earth would send its best. She did not explain what best meant. The lead official stepped forward. His hands shook slightly as he bowed. "Honored champions of Earth, we thank you beyond words for coming to our aid." Commander Renner looked at him with a calm expression. The official probably expected a grand speech, maybe something noble or inspiring. Instead, Renner simply said, "We're here to stop your war problem. Show us where to start." The Concorde officials exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered something in their own language. Another swallowed hard. They had asked for heroes. They did not understand what Earth had actually sent. As the team followed them toward the council gates, the officials walked carefully, as if they feared their own steps might startle the humans. Hecaton walked in silent formation. Their movements were steady, controlled, and unnervingly precise. To the Concorde, they looked like shadows wearing human faces. But to Earth, the people who had created them, they were exactly what this mission needed. The Vorth Dominion had crushed peaceful armies, conquered worlds, and spread fear across star systems. If the Concorde needed hope, Earth could offer that. If they needed safety, Earth could try. But if they needed something darker, something that could stand against the Dominion's cruelty, then Earth had only one answer: Hecaton, and they were already here. The Concorde Council chamber was shaped like a circle of glass and light. High windows curved toward the sky, showing the glowing forests and gentle rivers far below. Everything in the room was beautiful, soft, and peaceful, exactly the kind of place Earth's visitors did not fit into. When Task Force Hecaton entered, the room grew silent. Dozens of alien representatives watched them. Some had feathered heads, some floated instead of walked, and others had eyes like fireflies. Every one of them looked tense, their colors dimmed, their hands folded in caution, and their breath patterns changed. Commander Jax Renner stood at the center, Mira Kess and Thorn flanking him like silent shadows. The rest of the team formed a calm but intimidating shape behind them. They looked nothing like the polished heroes the Concorde imagined. They didn't wear shining armor. They didn't carry ceremonial weapons. They wore durable field gear and moved with the calmness of people who had survived too many dangerous missions to care about ceremony. Counselor Virel, the alien who had sent the original message to Earth, stepped forward. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," he said, his voice calm but thin. "We are honored by your presence." Renner nodded once. "We received your distress call. Tell us what you know about the Vorth Dominion. We will deal with them." His tone was direct. Too direct, judging by the way several council members flinched. To them, war was an ancient, nearly forgotten thing. They discussed problems with gentle debates. They solved conflicts with negotiation and science. Facing the Vorth Dominion had forced them into a world they were never designed for. Counselor Virel gestured to a holographic table. A swirling map of the galaxy appeared. Red lights marking the places attacked by the Vorth. One by one, planets blinked out, showing worlds that had fallen. "We have lost 17 systems," Virel said quietly. "Our defenses were never meant for this kind of enemy. The Vorth are ruthless and efficient. They do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. Their ships destroy our habitats before we can evacuate." Behind Renner, Thorn's jaw clenched slightly. His senses sharpened. He could almost feel the fear in the room. "We do not expect you to face them alone," Virel continued. "We have gathered what forces we can, but our fleets are not built for war." "Our fleets," Mira Kess nodded slowly. "We understand," she said. Her voice was soft and almost comforting, but her eyes were sharp. "We will need full access to your tactical data, fleet movements, communication patterns, planetary defenses, anything you have on the Vorth." The counselors shared uneasy glances. Giving foreign soldiers unrestricted access to their systems was not something peaceful species could do lightly. Renner stepped closer to the table. "If you want us to help," he said simply, "you must let us do what we do best, not what heroes do. What they do." Counselor Virel took a slow breath. "Very well. You will have full access." The chamber echoed with soft gasps from other representatives. But none of them argued. They were out of time. The Black Summit became the nerve center for planning. The Concorde sent data streams so large that the ship's systems had to adjust for the overload. While analysts sorted through the information, Hecaton prepared for their first mission. Thorn studied enemy fleet patterns on a holographic wall. The Vorth moved with perfect formation, their ships sharp and angular like flying blades. Their attacks followed a strict logic: clean, predictable, efficient. "Predictable means we can break them," Thorn muttered. Across the room, Mira Kess and 2 engineers from the Concorde worked on portable defense units. The aliens handled the devices gently, as though touching something dangerous. Mira handled them like tools. Simple, useful, no fear needed. Renner stood with the ship's captain, watching a 3D projection of the next targeted system. The Vorth fleet had already begun closing in on it. "Population?" Renner asked. 200,000, the captain said. "Mostly research colonies. The Concorde fleet near that system is small. They cannot hold the line. They want to cave you. They run over. They want over. They want over," Renner nodded. "Then Hecaton will." The captain swallowed hard. She respected the task force, but she didn't pretend to understand them. "What exactly is your plan, Commander?" Renner tapped a point on the hologram. A Vorth supply ship glowed in red. "We hit them where they don't expect. Take their resources, disrupt their clean strategy, force them into chaos. You want to attack behind their lines?" "No," Renner said calmly. "We want to break their lines entirely." The next day, Hecaton deployed. Their drop craft descended silently toward the targeted system. From space, it looked like a calm world with bright oceans and green plateaus. But on the horizon, sharp Vorth ships were approaching, their engines glowing white. The Concorde fleet waited nearby, small and nervous. They had been given one simple instruction from Earth: do not interfere. Inside the drop craft, Thorn strapped into his harness. Mira checked the medical kit one more time. The others sat in silence. They didn't need to speak. Missions like this didn't need words. Renner stood near the door as the craft shook during descent. "Remember," he said, "the point is disruption. No direct confrontation unless needed. We hit fast. We hit smart." The team nodded. The doors opened, and they landed on the dark side of a nearby moon. From here, they had a clean line to intercept a Vorth carrier. The ship was massive, shaped like an iron claw, glowing with cold light. It was heading toward the planet's outer stations. Thorne studied the ship through binoculars. "They're confident," he said. "They're not running scans. They don't expect resistance. They're confident. They're confident. They're confident." "Good," Renner replied. "Let's give them some." Hecaton moved like shadows across the moon's surface, using equipment designed for low-visibility infiltration. Their suits blended with the terrain. Their movements were coordinated and silent. They didn't charge. They didn't shout. They moved like a force of nature. When the carrier passed overhead, Hecaton activated their grav climbers and boarded the underside. Mira led the navigation, tapping into the ship's maintenance ports with tools that looked too tiny to matter, but in her hands, they mattered a lot. A small light blinked green. "We're inside," she whispered. Renner nodded once. "Begin Phase 2. The team entered through a maintenance hatch. Inside, the Vorth ship was clean, metallic, and humming with power. No alarms sounded. No guards expected intruders here. Hecaton split into 3 groups. Renner's group moved toward the command relay chamber. Thorne led another team to sabotage engine controls. Mira took a third toward the life support modules, not to damage them, but to reroute them in a way that would force the Vorth crew to evacuate rather than fight. This was how Hecaton operated. With precision, with speed, and with the kind of calm that came only from people who no longer feared danger. 10 minutes later, red lights began flashing across the ship. Vorth crew members scrambled through corridors, confused and shouting orders. Half their systems failed at the same time. A full evacuation alert triggered itself without warning. Outside the ship, the Concord fleet saw the Vorth carrier stagger and drift off course. "What? What happened?" a Concord captain asked, stunned. On the comms, Renner's voice came through. "Carrier disabled. Engines down. Crew evacuating. You can begin rescue operations." There was a long silence. Then the Concord captain whispered, almost breathless, "Humans, how did you do that without firing a shot?" Renner didn't answer. He didn't need to. Across the star system, the Vorth attempted to regroup, but their formations broke. Their timing slipped. Their confidence cracked. Hecaton struck again and again, never in the same place. Never with predictable patterns. They sabotaged supply lines. They redirected communication signals. They made entire battle groups turn on phantom threats. And each time the conquered fleet arrived afterward, they found crippled Vorth ships, scattered debris, and large sections of space cleared without any direct battle. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this. To the Concord, these were not heroes. They were something else, something efficient, fearless, and unsettling. Counselor Virel watched the reports in silence, his blue eyes wide with shock. "Earth did not send champions," he whispered. "They sent specialists." Another counselor corrected him quietly. "No, they sent monsters." But even as the words fell heavy in the chamber, the Vorth Dominion suffered its first losses in years. For the first time, the galaxy saw that the unstoppable enemy could be stopped, and Hecaton was only beginning. The mission had already changed everything. The Vorth Dominion, once seen as an unstoppable force, had started to retreat. Their fleet was in disarray, their carefully built strategies collapsing one after another. The Concord, shocked by the effectiveness of Task Force Hecaton, had begun to take notice, though they still couldn't quite understand what had happened. In the calm after the storm, the team aboard the Black Summit had gathered in their command room once again. The crew was quiet. It wasn't that they didn't know how to celebrate a victory. They had all fought battles before, and they knew what success felt like. But what they had done in these past few days wasn't just victory. It was something else. The Concord had asked for heroes, but Earth had sent them something else entirely. Renner stood at the head of the table, looking over the latest data. Despite the string of successful missions, he didn't look pleased. He never did after the job was done. His mind was always several steps ahead, considering the next move. Mira Kess, sitting next to him, tapped the datapad in front of her. "The Vorth are scrambling," she said, her voice low and steady, "but we've only hit the edge of their forces. They've got something bigger planned." Renner's eyes flicked to the map on the wall. Red dots blinked, representing Vorth fleets still intact. Slowly regrouping, refueling, and preparing to strike back. There was no doubt that they would retaliate. They were not a species to back down easily. Thorn, the silent giant of the team, stood at the back of the room, his hands folded behind his back. His voice was calm but grave. "They're planning a counterattack. They're not finished. They never are." The Council of the Concord had requested another meeting, their voices pleading for a final strike, a direct attack on the heart of the Vorth fleet. It would be a risky mission, but if they could break the Dominion's backbone, the war could end. Renner turned his gaze toward the door as it slid open. Captain Virel entered, his long arms folded in front of him. His pale blue skin a shade lighter than usual. He had come to speak with them about their next move. But his posture was stiff. The Concord's fear had not yet left him. "Commander Renner," he began, his voice wavering, "we are preparing the fleet for a decisive strike. We need your team to infiltrate the heart of the Vorth Dominion. Their flagship, the Bloodblade. It is the largest and most powerful ship they have, and it is their symbol of authority." Renner didn't react, his expression unchanged. Mira and Thorn exchanged quiet glances. A flagship was a serious target. Even for a team like Hecaton. "We've calculated the risk," Virel continued. "Our fleets will be in position to provide cover, but if your team can disrupt the Bloodblade's communications and command center, it will break the Vorth leadership. Without it, their forces will fracture." The words hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew this mission would be different. This wasn't a quick sabotage or a hit and run. This was an attack on the heart of the Vorth Dominion itself. Renner spoke, his voice like a whisper in the silence. "We don't need your fleet. We don't need your cover. We'll get in, disrupt them, and get out. The Vorth are predictable. They always play the same game. But if they know you're coming," Virel started to protest, but Renner interrupted him with a raised hand. "No one needs to know. We'll do this our way. Disruption, not destruction. No open battles." Renner paused, his eyes cold. "You wanted heroes. Now you'll get the monsters we warned you about." The mission began before the Concord even realized what was happening. Renner's team didn't wait for the fleet to form. Instead, they used the Black Summit's stealth technology to enter deep into Vorth space, cutting through patrols like shadows in the night. They had trained for this kind of operation: stealth, speed, and surprise. They didn't need flashy space battles. They needed silence. The Bloodblade was a colossal warship. Its hull was jagged and dark, like a weapon designed to instill fear. The team studied its movements on a large holographic map as they got closer. Mira adjusted the medical pack strapped to her side. She had a role in this mission. But it wasn't just about saving lives. She was here to make sure the team did their job and came back in one piece, something even she didn't always trust. Thorn looked over the plans once more. His eyes weren't full of nervousness. They were full of calculation, of finding weaknesses, of anticipating the unknown. "This isn't about winning battles," Thorn said quietly. "It's about breaking their will, taking apart their faith in their own strength." Renner didn't speak for a moment. Then he nodded. "Exactly. The Bloodblade may be their flagship, but it's a symbol. We're going to show them it's nothing but metal and wires." With the Black Summit cloaked in darkness, the team boarded their drop pods. They would land directly onto the Bloodblade's upper surface, bypassing most of the external defenses. They'd have only a few minutes to get inside before the Vorth realized what had happened. 5 minutes to touchdown. The pilot's voice came over the comms. Understood, Renner replied. The Bloodblade was a fortress in space. Its corridors twisted like a maze, designed for defense and control. There were no open spaces, no decorations, just walls of dark metal and blinking lights. Everything about the ship screamed efficiency and danger. Renner's team didn't hesitate. They moved swiftly, using their training to navigate the halls without a sound. They passed by Vorth soldiers who were completely unaware of the human shadows moving in the darkness. Mira moved to her assigned area, the life support systems. It wasn't her favorite part of the mission, but it was crucial. If they could disrupt the environmental controls, it would make the ship uncomfortable for the Vorth. They wouldn't be able to focus on fighting when they couldn't breathe properly. Thorn and the others set charges along critical systems. The main power grid, the weapons systems, places where a simple disruption would send ripples through the ship. They didn't want to destroy the Bloodblade. They just needed it to lose control. But as the team moved deeper, a strange feeling began to settle in. The Vorth hadn't responded yet. No alarms, no calls for backup. It wasn't until they reached the command center that they realized why. The Vorth were waiting for them. Renner's eyes flashed with realization. Trap, he muttered under his breath. Suddenly, the ship came alive. Red lights flashed, and alarms blared across the halls. The Vorth had locked down every exit. They had expected humans to come, just not this quickly. Renner's voice came over the comms. Phase 2. Initiate chaos. The Vorth, despite their technological superiority, had never encountered humans like this. The team split up, hitting their targets with surgical precision. The Vorth tried to fight back, but their countermeasures were too slow, too predictable. They had planned for a direct attack, but humans didn't fight like that. Renner and Mira entered the command center, and with a few quick commands, they initiated a full communications blackout. The Vorth leadership would be in the dark. Thorn disabled their weapons systems, one by one. Each explosion was carefully planned. Not to destroy the Bloodblade, but to make it feel vulnerable. The Vorth panicked. Renner and Mira moved toward the central command chair. As they reached it, a voice boomed through the ship's speakers. Human invaders, you cannot defeat us. The Vorth Dominion will crush your world. Renner didn't flinch. He didn't even pause. Your world's already crumbling, he said calmly, and pressed the final command. The lights went out. The Bloodblade was crippled. Its leadership would be lost, and its crew would have no idea how to proceed. And just like that, it was over. Back on the Black Summit, the team waited. The Concorde fleet was already moving in, but the battle was over before it began. Renner watched the reports. The Vorth were retreating. Their command was in chaos. The rest of the fleet was lost without a leader. He didn't feel relief. He felt the same cold calm that always followed victory. He didn't fight for glory. He fought for results. And in this moment, the Vorth had been stopped. But Renner knew better than anyone. This was only the beginning. For the Concorde, it felt like a strange silence had fallen over the galaxy. The Bloodblade was gone. The Vorth leadership had shattered, their fleet scattered in confusion. The human team that had caused all this chaos remained unseen, like ghosts moving through the shadows, quietly making their exit. But there was no time to rest, no time to reflect. Renner stood in the command room of the Black Summit, watching the stream of data scrolling past him on the screen. The Concorde fleet had already begun recovery operations. The Vorth, as expected, had retreated to their strongholds, but the war wasn't over. Renner had seen enough of the galaxy to know that a retreat wasn't a defeat, it was a moment of silence before a storm. His eyes flicked to the team members spread around the room. They didn't look satisfied. Not even Mira Kess, whose medical expertise had saved countless lives on these missions. The team had done their job, but there was a deeper weight on all of them. A feeling they had carried for a long time. They'll regroup, Renner said, his voice steady but low. We haven't won yet. The Vorth will return. But now, we've forced them to bleed. Mira nodded. We need to prepare for when they do, and the Concorde won't be ready. They never are. Thorn, who had been silently observing the data, finally spoke. The Vorth will need time to reorganize. But we can't assume they'll just wait. They'll have a new plan, a new attack, and this time, they'll be more careful. Renner ran a hand through his hair. I don't care how careful they are. We can't let them rebuild. We need to hit them while they're weak. Behind them, Captain Viral entered the room, his usual calm demeanor gone. His eyes were wide with fear, but also something else, recognition. He'd seen the results of what Task Force Hecaton had done. He knew they had destroyed the heart of the Vorth Dominion, but Virel also understood that the monsters of Earth were not easily satisfied. I've spoken with the Concord leadership, Virel began, his voice uncertain. We've never seen anything like this. Your team has done what we could not even dream of. But now, the question remains. What happens next? Renner turned to face him, his expression still cold. You give us one more chance to finish the job. Virel hesitated. But then he nodded slowly. We will. But you must understand. The Concord is not a warlike people. We were not prepared for this kind of intervention. If Earth continues down this path, others may not see your team as heroes. They may see you as a threat. Renner didn't flinch. Let them. We didn't come to the galaxy to be liked. We came to do what needed to be done. The Vorth need to know they can't just crush whoever they want. They need to understand that humanity isn't afraid to fight back. Virel looked down, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. But I don't know if your methods are the right ones. You've made us question what we believe in. You've changed everything. And that's the point, Renner replied firmly. The Concord asked for heroes. They wanted champions. But we didn't send them champions. We sent what the galaxy truly needed. The monsters who can stop the real threats. The mission was set. Task Force Hecaton's next objective was clear. They had to eliminate the Vorth's last stronghold in the galaxy, an ancient fortress deep in their territory, protected by a near-impenetrable defense network. The Vorth had built it as their ultimate refuge, and it was rumored to be the birthplace of their war machine. If they didn't hit it now, the Vorth would regroup, rebuild, and return stronger than before. Renner and his team prepared in silence. Their mission was the same as always: to disrupt, destroy, and leave no trace behind. They weren't there to win hearts or make allies. They were there to break the Vorth once and for all. Mira checked her gear for the last time, her fingers moving over the medical instruments with practiced precision. She wasn't just a healer on the battlefield, she was a weapon in her own right. She had learned how to keep her team alive in the worst of circumstances, and when she had to, she would take life to protect the mission. Thorn stood by the door, his massive frame barely fitting in the room. His eyes were locked on Renner, as if waiting for something. Maybe it was an order. Maybe it was a moment of doubt. But Renner didn't give him that. There was no room for uncertainty on this mission. We hit hard, Renner said, his voice sharp. We hit fast, and we make sure this is the last time the Vorth think they can come back. With a final glance at his team, he walked out of the room. The rest of the team followed. No words needed between them. They had done this too many times before. They knew their roles, their skills, and their limits. This was just another mission, another chance to remind the galaxy what humanity could do when it was pushed to the edge. The assault began under the cover of darkness. The Black Summit dropped low, its stealth systems cloaking it from the Vorth scanners. Below, the Vorth fortress stood, a massive structure built into the side of a barren planet. Its jagged spires reached up like claws, a symbol of their endless hunger for power. This was the heart of their war, and it was about to be torn apart. Renner and his team infiltrated the outer defenses, moving through narrow tunnels and hidden access points. The Vorth had expected a direct assault, something loud, something they could fight back against. They had never considered that the humans would come in from below. Mira moved ahead, using her specialized gear to disable the life support systems. Within minutes, the fortress began to lose power, causing the Vorth to panic. Thorn's team planted charges on key infrastructure, ensuring that no escape routes would remain open. Each explosion was calculated to create chaos, not destruction, disrupting the fortress without blowing it to pieces. Renner's team made their way to the command center. The Vorth were already scrambling, trying to re-establish control. But it was too late. The Vorth leadership, locked in their own confusion, didn't even realize what was happening until the team was already in the heart of their command center. The battle that followed was swift. The Vorth soldiers tried to fight back, but they weren't prepared for the chaos that Hecaton brought. Renner's team didn't fight to win, they fought to ensure the Vorth could never rebuild. Each Vorth soldier they incapacitated, each control panel they dismantled, was another step toward breaking the Vorth's hold on the galaxy. In the final moments of the mission, Renner faced the Vorth commander, a towering figure with dark, glowing eyes. "You think you've won?" The Vorth commander snarled, his voice cold and vicious. "We will rise again." Renner didn't flinch. He didn't need to speak. His team had already done the job. The Vorth's last stronghold was finished. The galaxy was a step closer to peace, but Renner knew better than anyone. Peace was an illusion. The galaxy would always have its monsters, whether it liked it or not. As the Black Summit lifted off from the broken fortress, the team stood together in silence. They didn't need to celebrate. There was no victory dance. There was just the quiet hum of the ship's engines and the cold, sharp knowledge that their work was never done. Mira glanced at Renner, her expression unreadable. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" Renner turned to face her. "They don't need to forgive us. We're not here for forgiveness." Thorn looked out the window, his gaze distant. "We're here to make sure no one else has to face what we've faced." Renner nodded, a faint smirk on his lips. "Exactly. We're the monsters the galaxy needs." And as the stars stretched out before them, Task Force Hecaton knew one thing for certain. They had become the galaxy's final line of defense, whether the galaxy liked it or not.